Hi, friends, and welcome back. And after that standing ovation and those cheers and throngs of happy revelers, how could you not be happy to be back? Thank you for joining us. This it's actually Monday. I know it's Wednesday Night Live, but for studio reasons, we have to actually record on Monday. Tonight will be the Republican convention coming to you from Cleveland. That should be a hoot. I mean, it should be very interesting, and we'll probably talk about it next week. I think the Democrats are next week. I'm not really sure, and that will be fun, I guess. At any rate, welcome back. We want to cover a lot of areas tonight, and as I've often done in the past, I was forgetting for the last few shows, but I'll do it again and remind you, please have a pencil and paper handy. You never know when I just might drop something in there and you say, wait a minute, Lillig, back up. And of course, this isn't TiVo, so I can't back up. So, however, you can. Now, my wife maintains a Facebook page for me, and I haven't really made a lot of use of it, and I should. And if you will contact me on my Facebook page, I would be happy to respond to whatever, and I would enjoy ideas for stories, good stories, things that you've read, comments, critical or other, negatively critical as well as positively. I welcome those, and of course the negatives I'll throw in the waste can. I will review them, but I would really appreciate it. So here we go. Go to Facebook. Now, most people Facebook. I don't. That's why my wife does this for me. But go to Facebook if you're there. Wednesday Night Live Pocatello. It doesn't get any easier than that. You know what show you're watching anyway. Wednesday Night Live Pocatello. You'll be able to see my show and other information seen on my show, and then you can message me, and I would appreciate it if you did. We're getting a pretty good number of people now who are subscribers to my Facebook page. We have 54 regular. Pardon? Yeah, YouTube. I'm sorry. My audience, also known as my wife, reminded me that it's on YouTube. But we have 54 subscribers. I know that's a pittance compared. Well, it's more than MSNBC, but it's a pittance next to Fox. So I would really appreciate your becoming a subscriber on YouTube, and you can do it. Just go to YouTube Ralph Lillig. That's one way to do it, and then you can also. I don't know if there's a way to subscribe on the city's access site, but you can also view my program on Pocatello Community Media YouTube. Pocatello Community Media YouTube, and we're having some success there. People are watching it. It kind of goes out in both places. So we've had our last program has really been getting a lot of dispersal around the state, and quite honestly around the country. We do have, you probably think I'm kidding you, but we do have viewers in Israel and in Australia, and as well as around the country. I believe we have some in a suburb of London. I'm not quite clear on that, but okay, they're family friends. What can I say? But they're viewing. So anyway, so if my wife has this Facebook page, she monitors it, and if you have something to say, please say it. Go to Wednesday Night Live Pocatello on Facebook. All right, so got a couple of things to cover, but as I do every week at this time, may I please remind you about Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center. Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center is a Christ-centered nonprofit ministry offering life-affirming alternatives to abortion and compassionate care to those who face pregnancy and abortion-related issues. It's, as I say all the time, it's that simple. This is about life. Now, this is a very small organization. They don't get the millions of billions of dollars as does the Planned Parenthood folks. To try to be kind in my thoughts about that. So they really need your help. This particular branch, if you will, is a local organization. One full-time, 2 part-time volunteered. Well, they're paid. The part-timers are just, it's just very small because they only work, 4 or 5 hours a week. But that being said, they have a number of people who volunteer, but they really need your help to help these mothers and to help these new babies. And there are so many ways you can help, from buying diapers, infant-sized diapers, to and just helping them financially. Won't you please call 478-HOPE? Doesn't get any easier than that. 478-HOPE. Of course, the area code for Idaho is 208. So if you're outside of Idaho, 208-478-HOPE. See how you can help them. If you're out of the area, maybe you'd like to send them a check. I'm sure they would be very appreciative. I don't know if they have a way to do credit card donations, but now, see, they don't sell baby parts, so they have no way to make money. They try to keep the babies intact. God will bless you, and you will bless an expectant mother and that baby. We had a guest last week. If you had viewed this, You saw our guest who came in from Twin Falls. And I erred. I said they came in from 130 miles away, and I was corrected several times by my conscience, sometimes known as my wife. It's actually about 113 miles from here. But still, the guy came in here on his own dime. I really appreciate it. He's a very nice young man. And I was so, as I said on my program last week, I had expected some old fogey like me. And here's this nice young man, clean cut. And I thought, what a nice thing to see young people getting involved in the future of the country. Because, folks, you know, we old guys are not going to be here that much longer to keep on the lights. So we need the young people to replace us. At any rate, he came in to tell us about Brigitte Gabriel. I always call her Gabriel, just because of my Spanish thing. Brigitte Gabriel, and she is a survivor of Islamic terror. She's going to be in Twin Falls Thursday, August 4th. Please put this on your calendar, put it in your phone, put it on your whatever you have, your iPad. Brigitte Gabriel, Thursday, August 4th at 7 p.m. at the Roper Auditorium, and there is no fee. The admission is free. You can get tickets, and they really would like to get a ticket count early, because that's how they can determine if they have enough people to go, you know, to have the show. Quite frankly, Brigitte travels all around the country, probably around the world. She's a well-known face. She's a Christian lady who was under the thumb and the terror of Islam in Lebanon, where she came from. So she knows the terror of being under the Islamic states and the Islamic stuff. So she's kind of ringing the bell, trying to get people to come to the fire and try to put it out. She is just a really super lady. I really look forward to hopefully having the chance to meet her. But here's what you do. You want to get tickets. You can do a couple of things. Let's see if I can get this right. Okay, now you can go to www.eventbrite, and that's B-R-I-T-E, Eventbrite, one word, .com/E/Brigitte. Dash Gabriel. You know, I think you'll find all this when you get there. I don't think you're going to have to say, oh, Ralph, you went too fast. How many forward slashes? I suspect that if you go to eventbrite.com, or if you put in her name, just look her up where she's speaking, I suspect this will come up. They don't put a phone number in here, so I guess they don't want you to do that. Now, this event, as I said, is free, and it's sponsored by We the People Magic Valley. And We the People Magic Valley is one of the few patriotic groups that's actually standing up for the defense of the non-Muslim American way. I mean, you've been reading about, in fact, we're going to share something in a minute about what's been going on in our state, especially in Twin Falls. I have told you many times about the things here in town, because the President Velas has gone out of his way to recruit as many Muslims into the community at the university, because they're a cash cow, and the university is failing. I hate to say that. It's a university town. There's some 3,500 employees there, but the university is failing. The admissions are down, and so President Velas, kind of grasping at straws, I guess, and not really caring if it has any positive effect on you, has a recruiting team. They actually recruit Muslims, and let's face it, well, we'll talk a little bit about all the wonders of having Muslims in town too. So we're inundated with them here, and you've heard me talk about the various issues. During the school year, we have well over 1,000 here. They don't have that many yet in the Magic Valley, but they're going to, because of the big Chobani plant there, and the big Chobani plant is employing Muslims. Now, they are employing non-Muslims also, but let's face it, for every Muslim that takes a job at that plant, there's an American that doesn't have a job. And with jobs as precious as they are, make your own decision on that. So anyway, check this out. This thing is sponsored by chapters of Act for America. That's Brigitte Gabriel's organization. Dally Post, Tactical, and the John Birch Society. All of them are good organizations. Brigitte Gabriel, August 4 at 7 p.m. Be there or be square, as we used to say in rock and roll radio. Well, I didn't say it. I was just listening. But I always like that. Be there or be square. Okay. Don't forget again about looking us up on Facebook. Now, this article I'm going to share with you. I had other things that I was going to share first, but this is such, and it's a bit lengthy, so I'm going to have to ask you to bear with me, because I think it's pertinent and germane to this whole business with what's happening to our nation. You know, I was watching General Michael Flynn, a retired general. Remember, it's brigadier, major, lieutenant, and general. So when you say general, it's usually a 4-star. Michael Flynn is God bless the Mick that he is, a retired Army general with a distinguished record. And he's written a book, and I'm looking forward to getting a copy of the book. I don't have the title. You can look it up by General Michael Flynn, I'm sure. And in this, I was pleased. I heard it on an interview the other day. He kind of outlined some of the very things that I've been sharing with you as to what I say about how we can rid ourselves of this scourge upon the earth, which is known as Islam. Now remember this, folks, and General Flynn points this out in his book, so I felt rather vindicated that a man of his stature would say some of the same things I've been saying. First of all, remember that Islam is not a religion per se. It is a political system with religion as the anchor. And that makes it very convenient, because if you try to differentiate between the two, you have a problem. Now, you don't have that similarity with the Jewish faith. You don't have a political system with Judaism as the anchor. In Christianity, you don't have a political system with Christian as the anchor. Only Islam has this. And so it puts them in a position where they can throw a lot of stones and get away with it, because people are afraid to say anything, because then it can be called, they can either say you're a racist or a bigot or not homophobe, but Islamophobe. They can call you all kinds of names, and then they can point to the fact that, well, we're Muslims. That's our religion. Well, actually, the Qur'an, which is the cornerstone of all things Islam, is the Qur'an. The Qur'an was written by one guy, Muhammad, who declared himself to be a prophet. Nobody could dispute it, and those that did died for disputing it. So this one guy dreamt up this religion, which in fact is only 14% of the whole political system. So I say that again, I've shared that with you before, because General Flynn points out, he doesn't use that 14%, he simply points out that the Quran is the cornerstone, and that it is not a religion, but it's an entire self-contained, encapsulating political life system. And it's backed up by Sharia, which is the Quranic law. The Muslims would like to replace the laws of the world with Sharia under a one-world caliphate, and if you try to protect yourself against them, you're called all kinds of names because they are Muslims. It's Islam. Well, it's only a part of that. And under our form of government, which is it's a Republican, small r, Republican, representative constitutional Republican form of government, we have freedom of religion as one of the major tenet of our way of life. Now, the government with their progressive friends have gone out of their way to subvert the true meaning of freedom of religion, and they've tried to make it freedom from religion. But it was never intended that. It was of religion. However, none of that religion they're talking about had a political system to go with it. Islam does. And so there is a very real danger if we allow Islam to take hold in this country. And in some places, it's already being practiced. There's a community outside of Dearborn, Michigan. Dearborn itself has some serious problems with the Muslim indonation, if that's the correct word. There's a judge in Texas, a woman judge, who took her oath on the Quran, her oath of office. That's scary, folks. The fact that she was allowed to get away with that should scare you. It should run shivers through the community. She got away with putting her hand on the Quran. Well, the Quran does not allow any room for anything other than the Quran, other than Islam, submission. So we've got a real problem there. So one of the things that I said that we need to do if we are to eliminate the scourge that is Islam is make Islam a pariah on the face of this earth. It has to be, people have to understand what a horror it is and then take action to destroy it, get rid of it in order to, and I'm not just talking about the minor ideology. You're not going to get rid of the Quran, no matter how much it might be good for the world. You're not going to get rid of those who think that Muhammad is the paragon of all virtue. But you have to make that faith, that political system, a pariah on the face of the earth. Then you have to stop trading with these people. Now, we don't need to buy oil from OPEC. certainly not from Saudi Arabia. We have proven oil reserves in this nation far in excess of Saudi Arabia. That surprises some people, but look into it. Just the Bacon or Bakken field alone is tremendous in its ability to produce. So we could technically do without the oil from the Middle East. It'll take a while to get those gears ground down, but why should we send money to Islam as a nation? We are a Judeo-Christian nation. We have no business supporting Islam, which is antithetical to everything that we in the Western civilized world stand for. You take, as I've said before, and this is it's extreme, I admit, but it is one thing that Muslims understand. Muslims, because of their faith teaches them that they are superior to all other peoples, and that's not a racial issue; it's a religious issue. Muslims teach, the Qur'an teaches, that Islam is superior to all religions, and nobody else even has a right to live on the face of the earth, basically. So, when you have something like this Muslim that killed these 5 officers in Dallas, it was very interesting. You don't hear the Obamianists, Sheikh Obama and his CARE brothers, the Brotherhood, the Muslim Brotherhood. You don't hear them talking much about this guy that was the killer anymore. In fact, only Fox News seemed to care that the guy was a Muslim and that he made 2 very specific statements. He wanted to kill cops and he wanted to kill white people, not necessarily in that order. And yet, Roberta Lynch, or whatever her name is, Lynch, the ag for the entire nation, has downplayed that to almost nothing. And of course, Obama, when he was asked about, if the guy specifically said, very publicly and on internet and everything else, if he specifically said, yeah, I'm with ISIS, yeah, Aloha snack bar, yeah, I want to kill white people and I want to kill cops. He made those things very, very public. What do you think, Mr. Obama? Do you think there's a problem there? And his answer, in a nutshell, was, well, it's really unclear. Are you kidding? So that's what we're up against with the White House, or as I've often referred to it, the ISIS safe house. All right, so I'm kind of beating around the bush. We can get rid of this scourge. It can happen. One of the ways to do it is you take that guy, the murderer of those 5 police officers, you locate every one of his relatives in this country, I don't care how long they've been here, and you send them back to the nation they originated from. Send them packing and give them a one-way ticket. They're never allowed back. Now, I guarantee you do this a few times or a few hundred times, and pretty soon the people who really want to be here are going to give a lot of thought before they let Junior go out and do his Aloha snack bar stuff. Think about it. It's not killing them, although they may very well die under their religion when they get back to the nation they came from, because the Muslims, the religion of peace doesn't have much tolerance for people who disagree. All right. Then, as Gingrich said, and I think he made a good point, you have to have a test for those people who want Sharia in this country and exclude them. Don't let them in. Why would we let them into this country, knowing that what they advocate, Sharia under Islam, advocates the destruction of all our Western Judeo-Christian values? Why? There's no reason. I ask you again, I've asked you many times, just in this one community, what in this all-inclusive diversity, what have we gained by having Muslims in our community? What have they done that has built this community and made it better? Absolutely nothing. What do they have that we need? Absolutely nothing. So why do we fear saying that we don't want them? We shouldn't. We should have no fears there. Well, let's move on. Let's go. Now, I just found this today. In fact, it was sent to me, and I had second thoughts about reading it because it's a bit lengthy, but I hope you'll indulge me because it really makes a good point. This is from Breitbart, and we've shared things many times from Breitbart. Sometimes Breitbart goes off on a tangent, the wrong way, I think, but usually they're pretty straight on. This was actually a rewrite on Breitbart of a Pamela Geller article. It's titled, Hospital Refuses to Release Medical Records of Five-Year-Old Idaho Victim Raped by Muslim Migrants. I looked at that and I thought, what? Well, let's see what. A 5-year-old girl was raped and urinated upon by 3 Muslim migrants in Twin Falls, Idaho. One of them, a 14-year-old, videotaped the attack. After the attack, instead of getting justice, the victim's family has been abused and targeted by law enforcement and medical authorities as if they were the criminals. The mother cannot get copies of the medical records of her own child or transcripts of 911 calls made on the day of the attack. In examining notes taken of the conversations with the victim's mother, I was taken aback by how contemptuous they are of her. They talk down to her as if she were the perpetrator, not the mother of the victim of this monstrous attack. It is outrageous, and it gets worse. The supposedly 7-year-old rapist who put his penis in the girl's mouth, urinated on her and in her mouth, and who repeatedly owned the blue pocket knife that he used to threaten her, was never even removed from his home. That family still lives next door to the victim. For the longest time, the attacker wasn't even limited in his access to the community's children. Now he must be supervised by someone 14 years old or older. When they stipulated this, the court had to have been aware that the boy who videotaped the rape was 14. This is a gross insult against this victimized family and a direct result of a judge's decision. Meanwhile, the neighbor of the family who caught the perpetrators in the act, an elderly woman known to all as Grandma Joe, has been living in constant terror since she first happened upon the grisly scene. She has been stalked by the Iraqi family of the 7-year-old attacker. Her apartment is back to back with theirs. They peer into her windows and pace back and forth in front of her apartment in a clearly menacing manner. The victim's family has received no assistance, no financial aid from federal or state programs to help them relocate. It is almost impossible to find a place to rent because of the housing shortage due to the sudden crush of refugees. And we're talking about Syrian refugees, Muslims. Rents have gone way up as well. The 5-year-old rape victim is still living next door to the ringleader of the Muslim mob that raped her. She is terrified and won't leave the house, as the attacker's family members walk by the victim's family's windows and taunt them. The poor girl desperately does want to play outside. She's only 5, folks. But it isn't safe to do so without parental supervision. Recently, a carload of Muslim males pulled up in front of mother and daughter. The car stopped and its occupants stared them down. The mother witnessed one of the males run into the house and get something that appeared cylinder-like. At the time, she was afraid it was a gun. Moments later, their house was being struck by bottle rockets. This isn't an isolated case in Twin Falls, as there have been other reports of American homeowners having their homes struck by bottle rockets. And let's be serious. These people are not celebrating the 4th of July or Americanism. The prosecuting attorney has gone out of his way to imply that this rape was false information. His interviews have led the media and public officials to deny clear facts of the case. The U.S. Attorney for Idaho even vowed to charge anyone who made false statements about the perpetrators. The Hamas-led Council on American Islamic Relations, also known as CARE, said that the case has become a lightning rod for anti-Muslim and anti-refugee sentiments. I'm sorry. I get touched by those horrible things. A source close to this horrifying case has struck back against the disinformation being propagated in the case and sent me a couple of timelines of events. So here at last is what really happened, straight from someone who was deeply involved the whole time. On Thursday, June 2nd, 2016, the little girl was assaulted by Muslim migrant boys, 2 Sudanese boys aged around 10 and 14, 1 Iraqi boy around 7 years old. The girl said that they used a knife and dragged her into an apartment laundry room at Fawnbrook Apartments in Twin Falls. They were caught in the act by a neighbor, Grandma Joe. According to Grandma Joe, when she opened the laundry room door, she saw 2 boys standing over the naked victim, urinating on her and pulling themselves. She told the attackers to get dressed. Then she helped the victim get dressed in her urine-soaked clothing. A neighbor arrived to help, and the victim was taken to her family apartment. Her maternal grandmother arrived. The girl was washed and dressed, and the family called 911 3 times. Before the police arrived, the 14-year-old attacker disappeared. Eventually, the Twin Falls County Sheriff personnel arrived, as well as the police. They took statements. The 2 attackers who could be found were scolded and told to obey Grandma Joe. The police warned them to be good, or they would come back and get them in a large school bus and take them to jail. They were told to obey Grandma Joe in order to avoid this. That evening, the little girl was taken to the emergency room at St. Luke's Hospital, where she was examined for rape and blood work was taken. The girl's parents say that at, well, this is something about risk evaluation service, CARES. She was examined by a Dr. Reese. She was told to go for second evaluation on June 6th with CARES doctors. I guess this is Children at Risk Evaluation Services. It's kind of faded out, forgive me. It is unclear if at this time or any other time the assailants were frisked, examined, or subjected to blood or urine tests. They were not restrained or removed from their homes. The next day, 2 police detectives interviewed Grandma Jo in her home. A police detective, J.R. Paredes, brought the victim a stuffed toy. On Monday, June 6th, CARES, that's not CARE but CARES, interviewed the little girl while Detective Paredes and 2 counselors watched. Photographic evidence was taken of what was taken at the time by the girl's parents and a doctor to be a cut on her neck as well as of her private area. Days later, however, the girl's mother called CARES for an update and was told that the neck cut was actually just a scratch and that this was determined by blood vessel appearance, an evaluation based on examination of a photo, not a re-examination of the victim. The family put the victim in a daycare center in order to remove her from proximity to the perpetrators, who continued to run unrestrained in the complex. The victim's family is poor. Their sister-in-law paid the center's $500 bill. On June 7, KMVT, a local TV news station, published a Facebook news article on possible sexual assault at Fawnbrook. 6 days later, on June 13th, citizens addressed the Twin Falls City Council during public input to question them about the rape of the child. The next day, a collection was taken up for the girl's family. They were presented with the money on June 15th. On June 16th, the prosecuting attorney's office called the family while the supporter who had taken up the collection for them was visiting their home. Both parents spoke to Janice Kroger, the senior deputy prosecuting attorney, and told her they wanted the attackers prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The next day, a detective called the family at 11:45 a.m. to say that warrants would be issued for the arrest of the attackers, but time was needed to process them. The family was fearful of backlash from the families of the perpetrators. Several individuals began video surveillance of the area. On Saturday, June 18th, 2 of the perpetrators, both Sudanese Muslim migrants, were arrested. Kroger called the victim's family from the prosecuting attorney's office to tell them that the arraignment would be Monday, June 20 at 1 p.m. The father of the victim told Kroger that the family insisted on being involved in all the hearings. Curiously, Kroger questioned his interest in the case. His interest, the father of the baby, the rape victim? At the Sudanese boys arraignment hearing that Monday, the family of the victim and a non-professional support person were in the courtroom. Notably, Angie Beeson, the director of victim services, was not present. Outside of the courtroom, the parents of the victim and several of their supporters, along with Jeff Rolig, an attorney for Fawnbrook Apartments, the apartment manager, Detective Paredes, and a Sergeant Wright of the Twin Falls Police, had a conversation about the knife that the victim and others said was used by the perpetrators. The 14-year-old attacker had cut an 8-year-old girl 2 weeks before the attack. The boy used his blue pocket knife. The mother of this child had entered a complaint against him at the time of the rape, but later dropped it for fear of retaliation. On June 20, the family met with Grant P. Loebs, the prosecuting attorney, and Janice Kroger at the prosecuting attorney's office. Loebs rambled through a victim services package list and stated that Angela Beeson would be the victim's advocate for the family. The parents requested a restraining order, but Loebs and Kroger appeared uncertain if a 7-year-old could have such an order filed against him. Loebs said that he had given 3 interviews in order to clear up the confusion and set the facts straight. Loebs stated that the system was not prepared to deal with a 7-year-old. I suspect it was Loebs who was not prepared to deal with the 7-year-old. Later that day, Twin Falls Police Chief Craig Kingsbury made a public statement praising the police department, CARES, and the city council. He called the rape lewd and lascivious and said it was a case of boys acting out. During the next week, a supporter of the family, Julie Ruff, took dictation from Grandma Jo for her sworn affidavit. Ruff typed it up as if it was spoken to her. Grandma Jo reviewed the affidavit and then took it to her bank, signed it, and had it notarized. She then gave it to the victim's parents so they could give it to their attorney. On June 21, the Twin Falls Police Department sent an officer to search the Fawnbrook apartment complex for the knife. The officer spoke to a friend of the family, who informed him that the knife was known to be a blue pocket knife that the perpetrators hid in a Russian olive tree on an empty lot nearby. Officers confirmed that the area around the tree appeared to have someone hanging out there often. Then pictures were taken with him and the kids in his police car. On June 23, the Sudanese boys were arraigned for a second time. They were released to their parents and a second Sudanese family. Angie Beeson discussed court procedure with the parents of the victim. A supporter of the family warned Beeson that if the boys were released, they may be a flight risk. Angie answered that they would just need to be arrested again if they fled. Papers were signed by the victim's family, but it is uncertain what they were. An observer in courtroom indicated that Janice Kroger didn't appear confident and was apparently reading from a book at one point. Kroger actually asked the judge if she was doing okay in reference to her actions in the proceedings. That's what you need, a really confident prosecutor. Somebody's got it all together. On the same day, Fawnbrook Apartments caused an eviction notice to both the Sudanese and Iraqi families that were involved in the rape. The Sudanese immediately began to move out and were gone by Monday the 27th. The next day, Wendy J. Olson, U.S. Attorney for Idaho, issued her notorious statement warning that giving out false information about the perpetrators could violate federal law. And there you have Sheikh Obama's henchmen and heavy-handed law enforcement people threatening basically anybody who had the temerity or the audacity to speak up on this, knowingly or otherwise uttering a false statement. And let's face it, this thing has been so convoluted. I suspect a false statement could be made quite accidentally just because they were misinformed by somebody who was properly informed and misrelayed the information. It gets really twisted, folks. But here you are with the U.S. Attorney for Idaho threatening legal action, federal legal action, against people who have the audacity to exercise their First Amendment rights. On June 24, a no-contact order was issued, as per the parents of the victim's request, against all three assailants. Sergeant Wright stated that it would not be entered in the police department's record until days later. I don't know what the holdup was. Maybe it was a weekend, and let's face it, some of the small-town departments don't like to work on weekends. But I just speculate, and I digress. On June 27th, the mother of victim called 911 offices in Twin Falls to request a copy of her public record 911 transcripts. The woman on the phone told her that she wasn't sure that the victim's mother would be allowed to have those. And that she, remember, these are public records, and these are the victim's mother, or this is the victim's mother asking for this. And that she would need to contact the prosecutor's office. The mother would have to. The prosecuting attorney's office called back with the answer that no documents would be handed over until the case was closed because it was a sealed case. That afternoon, at a meeting of the Twin Falls City Council meeting, Twin Falls Mayor Sean Brager gave a soliloquy absolving the City Council of a responsibility and telling the community to calm down. Julie Ruff told the council that the Iraqi child was still running free in the complex and playing among the other children. The victim and her family, consequently, were shut away in their home to protect themselves. From this evening on, the Iraqi boy remained mostly in his apartment, as did his mother or grandmother. It was difficult to determine which she was. Also on June 27th, Nevada Assemblywoman Michelle Fiore and Shelley Shelton were traveling through Twin Falls on the way home and stopped at Fawnbrook to offer aid and comfort to the victim and her family. Fiore called Detective Paredes to ask him for the case number, which the parents did not have, and was treated disrespectfully by him. On June 28th, Olson issued a second statement to clarify her inflammatory and authoritarian June 24th statement. That day, the parents met at Jaker's Restaurant in Twin Falls with attorney Bruce Skaug. The parents requested that Julie Ruff remain with them during the meeting, but Skaug insisted otherwise, and Ruff left. The parents then signed a contract with Skaug under duress due to their vulnerable emotional condition. They gave Skaug Grandma Joe's affidavit. Despite their subsequent request that he return it, he has not done so. In Jaker's Restaurant, Julie Ruff saw at another table with the private investigator for Bruce Skog, another attorney, Jeff Rollig. He was seated in a booth that placed him shoulder to shoulder with Skog, with a glass and pony wall divider between them. On June 29, the parents of the victim told Skog to cease work on the case and to send them a copy of their contract and his billable hours. The mother of the victim went with her neighbor to the Twin Falls Police Department. The neighbor intended to drop the charges against same Iraqi boy who knifed her daughter 2 weeks before the rape. While she was there, Detective Paredes, Sergeant Wright, and another officer asked to speak with the victim's mother. They escorted her behind 2 locked security doors and proceeded to grill and intimidate her until she was crying. Paredes specifically mentioned Assemblywoman Michelle Fiore's phone call. The victim's mother had called Julie Ruff, but Ruff arrived after the police had escorted her to a back room. Ruff asked to be taken to her since she had requested it, but no officer was sent to unlock the double security doors. Well, this goes on, folks, but you get the big picture. There is a whole lot being swept under the carpet to protect the interests of at least this portion of the Muslim community, not the American community, not the victim, but the Muslim community. And since Muslims are a high dollar whatever asset in the community, they're going to get preferential treatment as they've been getting here. So the little 5-year-old girl can't play outside for fear of these boys who are basically unrestrained, and nothing's being done for the victims. The only people who are getting any satisfaction, apparently, are the Muslims. And now our governor, working with the owner of the Chobani plant, is making sure that they will bring in another 300 Syrians to the Twin Falls area. And it isn't going to get any better. Well, this is a kind of an old news article. I wanted to share it with you because I hadn't seen this before. It's from June 30th. I've been carrying it around with all my other papers wanting to share it with you, but I think you'll find this interesting. Here again, it goes to Sheikh Obama, you know, the head imam in the ISIS safe house, and the so-called the Justice Department, where there's no justice, just us. There are a lot of things that are happening that we've never seen in this country, and all being led by the head imam, Sheikh Obama and his crew. He has surrounded himself with brotherhood, Muslim Brotherhood characters, CARE people, the Council Against whatever, the Muslim group. He has surrounded himself. Half or more of his advisors are Muslims, and of course we know he's a Muslim. And please don't give me that old stuff about the Jeremiah Wright Church and how he sat there for 20 years. He could have been sitting in a TV booth. I don't care. The man's a Muslim. It's pure and simple. He has made too many statements to not be considered a Muslim. And so this is what we get. Well, anyway, here we go. American News, June 30. Muslim shoots female police officer, media silent. When Deputy Katie Barnes responded to a call and entered the apartment stairwell, she didn't expect to be greeted by an AK-47. But there, Muhammad Abdu Lagawi, with the weapon in hand, and he opened fire, hitting her in the abdomen. Reports indicate that Muhammad's brother had called the police to his family's Landon, Ohio apartment, reporting that Muhammad had threatened to kill him and his father. Probably one of those wonderful honor killings that are so necessary in the Muslim families. Barnes responded to the call and talked to the family, who ultimately decided not to press charges. Barnes was called back after Muhammad punched his father in the face. Deputy Barnes parked her cruiser out of sight and proceeded up the stairs. That's when Muhammad appeared. Barnes had no hope of finding security when Muhammad opened fire, though she did back up and return fire. Though Barnes suffered a shot to the stomach, he was able to climb a wall and call for backup. Actually, she, not he, was able to climb a wall and call for backup. Another deputy heard the gunfire and pulled into the apartment complex. He found Barnes and was able to get her away from the scene. Muhammad also opened fire on his neighbor, Jason Ratliff, who had gone outside to see what was happening. Ratliff dove to the ground as Muhammad fired once more. Somehow, he was able to escape without injury. Muhammad was captured alive. Bail is set at $2 million, and he's being faced with charges of attempted murder and felonious assault. When did you hear that? I didn't even hear it on Fox. At least Fox kind of keeps up with this stuff. Hadn't heard that at all. Now here's a female officer It could have been any officer. It happens it's a female. And you know how Islam feels about females, so I'm sure he was ready to blast her. Did you know that, remember the female soccer coach that was having sexual relations with her female students? I spoke about this several times, and I hope you find it as abhorrent as I do, because we send, well, not me, my children are grown now, but you who still have families at home, you send your children to school with the idea that they're going to be safe and secure from predators. And then we find out that in the school, some of those trusted teachers are predators. Well, you may remember this soccer coach, and there was a lot about it. I mean, she was doing some, well, they're weird things to begin with, but she was preying upon young teenage girls. One of them finally had had enough or wanted to break off the relationship, whatever it was, and went public about it. Well, the hearing for the accused, now this is July 2nd, hearing for accused soccer coach delayed. The status conference for a former Blackfoot High School girls soccer coach accused of having sexual contact with a player was reset Monday. Alicia Yates, 28, is charged with 5 counts of lewd conduct with a child under 16 in Bingham County and 2 counts excuse me, for the same charge in Bannock County. In March, Yates pleaded guilty to 1 count of lewd conduct with a child under 16 in Bingham County. In exchange for the guilty plea, the 4 additional counts in that county and charges in Bannock County would have been dismissed. Why? Why would they dismiss those? Last week, retired Judge John Schinderling, who was sitting for the 6th District Judge David C. Nye, rejected Yates' guilty plea and the proposed plea agreement. Bingham County Prosecutor Cleve Colson said the judge set a second status conference to give Yates additional time to determine if she wants to withdraw her guilty plea in the case. Excuse me, folks. Ever get one of those irresistible tickles in your throat? And it goes on. Charges were filed against Yates. Pardon me. After the victim disclosed the abuse to a school counselor. The girl testified during a preliminary hearing that the sexual relationship between her and her former coach started when she was just 13 years old. And remember, I've told you, I've run this by you before, they want your children. That's the homosexual world wants your children. They want to groom them, they want to recruit them, they want to bring them into the lifestyle when they're too young to understand what their lifestyle is all about, and propagate the homosexual thing. And so they have infiltrated our schools, and now they're very open. As I told you when I announced Chris Cole and his husband's betrothal last week, that it was after the fact they were married on July 2nd, I'm told, and I haven't verified this, but I'm told that Chris Cole, who is pursuing an education in education, wants to get his bachelor's in teaching, I'm told he's already teaching journalism at Highland High School. Now, if that's true, can you imagine how the conversation would go if it somehow came up when he refers to his husband? What are those high school kids supposed to think about that? Sadly, the kids have been so inundated and misinformed and browbeat that a lot of them don't think anything of it anymore. They have been browbeat to the point where they actually accept 2 men as being a legitimate marriage, or 2 women as being a legitimate marriage. But now you have a school teacher, and we could use any example. We could use this coach who is in the school system, and she's preying on young girls. And now I don't know if she has a wife or if she's just a single woman, but they keep forcing this issue to make it seem like it's the norm. So you've got the all under one roof group that is supposedly there to give a safe haven or a safe place for those who are LGBTQ, could be queer or could be questioning, they use it either way. As often as not, when the LGBTQ people are talking about it, with teenagers they use the word questioning, because these youth are questioning their personal identity. They're being taught now that there are other identities and other ways to express themselves. And now they have something like All Under One Roof that is ostensibly a safe zone for homosexual kids or those who are thinking they maybe, want to. And really it's a recruiting and grooming zone where they can, it says in the scripture, bring up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from that path. Now I'm paraphrasing it, but that's a truism no matter what. If you start grooming the child in their prepubescent years and teaching them and to make them question their personal identity as a male or a female or their personal desires and longings, you get them early enough and groom them and train them. By the time you've got them into puberty, they're on the path to being a true victim, not just a potential. And now they have the safe zone where these people can teach these children that this is just an alternate lifestyle. You're okay, I'm okay. Mad World News. I don't know if you ever see this. Mad World News and ABC News Minneapolis, Minnesota, July 6th. Media hiding what mob of Somali Muslims did to white Minnesota neighbors. One of the things that we're hearing a lot about is the black on white, white on black and all that. If you're a white cop, if you're a straight white cop, you have no chance. If you're not an old guy like me, because old guys like me are harmless, but if you're a young straight white cop, you haven't a chance. If you do anything that LGBTQ don't want, the NAACP, the Black Panthers, the Black Caucus, the Brown Brothers, whatever, you're in a heap of trouble. So, but now the Muslim immigrants have figured out how they can use color to hide behind for their Muslim nefarious deeds. Well, anyway, here, in a blatant attempt to ignore a major news story that tears apart the liberal agenda, the mainstream media is widely refusing to report on what a mob of Somali Muslim men did in Minneapolis last week. This was on July 6th. However, a local has come forward with details concerning a major police investigation into a hate crime like those from which Europe is continuously suffering. Proving their bias, the mainstream media has neglected to report on a terrifying incident in Minneapolis that happened last week. After being picked up by a local news station, a young woman has boldly revealed key details of a mass hate crime in which young Islamic migrants targeted white non-Muslims throughout the neighborhood. KSTP-TV reports that a female resident, who understandably remains anonymous for her protection, told the network that she and other locals were attacked by a mob of up to 30 Somali Muslim men on June 28th. Police were called to the scene at about 9:30 a.m. after the mob of migrants showed up in front of a citizen's homes, yelling, threatening, and comments promising terrorist activities. Quote, "They were screaming at the house that they were going to kidnap you and they were going to rape you," one Minneapolis resident told 5 Eyewitness News. It was a very traumatizing experience. According to the police report, between 20 and 30 young men descended upon a woman's house, threatening to kidnap and rape her. The migrants were reportedly driving their vehicles up over the curbs and onto the lawn while shooting off fireworks and screaming threats in the Lake Calhoun area. Quoting, "It's a scary thought, especially for those who have young children," one Minneapolis resident said. Before leftists refute that these were in fact Muslim men, the police report states that the men were yelling jihad, and even told the female resident that they could kidnap, rape, and marry the already married woman because it was legal under Shawa, which is Sharia law. As expected, even the station that picked up the story somehow missed these references. Regardless of the racist nature of the incident, WND reports that neither Obama's Justice Department nor U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch are considering hate crime charges. Well, of course, these men are black, and they're Somali, so how could they be hateful picking on white people? We know that. Furthermore, no arrests have been made, and even the local media appears to be uninterested in reporting the mob activity. In fact, the Star Tribune, the largest newspaper in Minneapolis, didn't produce a single article concerning the police report. Still, this wasn't the only time locals say they were terrorized. Neighbors confirmed that these migrants have returned several times in the 3 days leading up to the event. But Monday's incident was the worst. Quoting, "The entire neighborhood is up in arms," one Minneapolis resident said. "It needs to get nipped in the bud before it gets any worse, because the escalation that occurs over a matter of hours could potentially kill or harm someone. The recent threats have led police to provide more security in the area, sending officers to patrol regularly. Still, residents say they fear the activity will only escalate. They are most likely correct, since the Somali Muslim community in Minnesota is known to rally in defense of their own, considering how they gathered in support and convicted ISIS terrorists just last year. And it goes on. Could it happen here? You bet your booties it could happen here. Could it happen in Twin Falls? Well, in a smaller way, it's already happened in Twin Falls. Will it happen elsewhere in Idaho? Wherever there are Muslims, we're going to have these problems. Now, this is from July 8th. Attorney General Loretta Lynch on the Dallas shooting. Answer must not be violence. And if you saw this, if you watch any of Obama's speaking, and somehow it always gets turned around to two things. It's not about black men or about Muslims. In fact, I guess it's almost always workplace violence, because these men are in their workplace and there's violence that happens. And it's all about guns. And remember, you have to broad brushstroke every gun owner as being a potentially violent person. But why would you do the same with every Muslim because of one Muslim doing violent things? Well, you can't broad brushstroke them. Only gun owners, you know. If one does something, all of them are bad. If one Muslim does something, so it's a lone guy. Calling the ambush murders of 5 Dallas area police officers an unfathomable tragedy. Really? Unfathomable? Attorney General Loretta Lynch appealed for calm following a deadly week of police-related violence that threatened to drive a deeper wedge between local law enforcement and the communities they serve. This has been a week of profound grief and heartbreaking loss, Lynch said Friday. The answer must not be violence, never violence. Our answer must be to act. Act how? I think everything she does is an act. Referring to recent incidents in Baton Rouge and the Minneapolis area where 2 African-American men were killed by police and the apparent retaliatory strikes in Dallas Thursday night, Lynch acknowledged feelings of helplessness and fear. And of course, those are the black community's feelings of helplessness and fear. Police officers, well, they deserve it anyway. And now, last night, we have in Baton Rouge, 2 police officers and a sheriff's deputy murdered by a black man, an ex-Marine. I won't call him a former Marine, I'll call him an ex-Marine, whose highest reward for service was Sergeant Stripes and a Good Conduct Medal. And he murdered these 3 police officers. There were, I think, 5 other officers and deputies who were also wounded, one of them seriously. And he did it because he hates cops. And I happened to watch some of the footage from one of his diatribes on television. I watched about 5 minutes of it. That's all I could stomach. And it was ridiculous. It was foolish. But I'm sure that some way he'll wind up being a hero in the black community for killing cops. 2 of the cops were white, 1 was black. And it was interesting watching Loretta Lynch today as she was talking about the 3 officers were killed, or 2 officers and a deputy were killed. And then the whole thing went to how dangerous it is for a black man to be a cop. Okay, and that's Jermaine Howe? That's the White House. Last one we're going to get to. Transgender suspect arrested for taking pictures in Target changing room. Now this comes from a very unlikely source, Snopes. Snopes is unreliable at best. They're usually wrong. They do a lot of cover-up, but this is an interesting article. This is July 13th. A transgender Idaho Falls woman was arrested on 1 count of felony voyeurism for a report that she took pictures of another woman changing clothes in a dressing room in a Target store in Ammon, Idaho. Unlike a fake news report from April 2016 involving a woman supposedly arrested for taking pictures of underage girls in Target bathroom, this report is real, according to Snopes. Sheriff's deputies responded to the store after a woman reported that someone was taking pictures of her while she was trying on clothes inside a dressing room. The victim noticed the suspect reaching over the wall with a cell phone, taking pictures, and confronted her, prompting the suspect to flee the store on foot. According to a Bonneville County Sheriff's Office news release, detectives were able to review witnesses' information and security footage from Target that led them to come in contact with 43-year-old Sean Patrick Smith, who also identifies as Shauna Patricia Smith, a transgender female. Detectives are investigating the case to determine if any more victims exist relating to this incident, the release said. The charge against Smith is punishable by up to 5 years in prison. The Trans Advocate website reported that the incident took place in a unisex changing area rather than a woman's dressing area, as was commonly stated in news accounts. We fact-checked this popular narrative. We contacted the Target store and spoke with staff who described the changing room area. Additionally, we physically visited the store in which the crime took place to verify the information the Target employees provided us. The Target store in question has a unisex changing area. Unisex changing areas were rolled out in Target stores years prior to Target's announcement of its trans-inclusive policy. However, the editor-publisher of the Idaho Falls Post-Register told us the Target store there does not have a unisex dressing room. I don't believe anyone from Trans Advocate either called or visited the Target in question. Perhaps they thought it was in Iowa Falls or Indiana Falls or Ohio Falls. But the Target in Idaho Falls does not have unisex fitting rooms. I personally verified this with a visit. The fitting room area has a counter staffed by an employee who sends you one direction for boys/men and another for girls/women. And there you have a problem because good old Jamie here, who wants to be known as Shauna, Sean, also known as Shauna, which way are you supposed to send him? I guess it depends on how heavy his beard pattern is. I don't know. Likely neither the gender status of the suspect or the dressing room was a significant factor in this crime. A perpetrator wearing a wig and a dress, as the suspect in this case was, could probably get into a dressing room and take pictures of women without initially raising alarm, regardless of whether the dressing room was women only or unisex, and regardless of whether the perpetrator was genuinely transgender or not. We warned you, folks. Here it comes. Well, our time is up. God bless you. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember to pray for our country, pray for Israel, love your family and pray for them. And we hope you'll join us again next week at this time. Remember, you can follow me. You go to Wednesday Night Live Pocatello if you have comments, questions, suggestions. Wednesday Night Live Pocatello on Facebook, and YouTube Ralph Lillig if you want to go right to my program. God bless you. See you next week.